Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to debate the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Number 3 Bill of 2026. Madam Speaker, ma'am, in doing so, I carry with me the views and concerns of the citizens of Harare West constituency, gathered through a constituency consultative meeting that I held on the 21st of March 2026 in Maubra in Harare West constituency. I wish to state from the onset that the people that I represent have expressed an overwhelming opposition to this bill. Ma'am, they believe it weakens the democratic governance, it undermines constitutionalism, and erodes the sovereignty of the citizens. Our constitution is not an ordinary statute. It is a supreme law of the land and a social contract between the citizens and the state. Madam Speaker, ma'am, at the center of this bill today is a fundamental question. Does this bill strengthen the sovereignty of the people, or does it take away the power from the people and concentrate it into the executive? The Constitution of Zimbabwe is founded on a popular sovereignty. The legislative authority that we enjoy today is derived from the people. Parliament is therefore not a master of the Constitution, but Parliament is a servant of this very Constitution. Madam Speaker, ma'am, this bill, when read as a whole, does not merely make technical changes. It forms a coherent scheme that weakens the electoral accountability, reduces citizens' participation, and consolidates power in the executive. When I was going through this bill as presented by the Honorable Minister Ziyambi, I saw a troubling pattern. I saw that the bill seeks to take away the people's direct right to elect their head of state. I saw that the bill also seeks to extend the term of elected officials. I also saw that the bill weakens the independent institutions and concentrates more authority in the executive. I am therefore, Madam Speaker, ma'am, convinced that these amendments move this country, Zimbabwe, into a wrong direction. Let me go clause by clause, Madam Speaker, ma'am. I want to start with clause 2. Clause 2 removes the voter registration, compilation of the voters' roll, and custody of the voters' roll from an independent Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and transferring those roles and these functions to the Registrar General. As Harare West constituency and myself, we reject this clause. The voters' roll is a function, the voters' roll is a foundation of a free and fair election. Whoever controls the voters' roll, Madam Speaker, ma'am, controls the critical part of our electoral process. Moving this function from ZEC to the Registrar General weakens the electoral independence and places a core electoral function under an office that lacks the same constitutional safeguards as the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Speaker, ma'am, if the concerns with ZEC is efficiency, the answer is very simple. The answer is not to strip away ZEC of its mandate. The answer is to strengthen ZEC by making sure we improve data sharing with the Registrar General, modernizing registration systems. We are now in the 4th industrial revolution where we can make use of AI and also ensure transparency within ZEC. Let me quickly move on to clause 3. This is one of the most dangerous clauses, Madam Speaker, ma'am. It proposes that the President must be elected by members of Parliament in a joint sitting of Senate and the National Assembly. The people of Harare West are very clear. The President must be elected directly by the people. We maintain that there must be one vote, one person, one vote must remain. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the question is, are we saying the liberation struggle and its gains were a mistake. One person, one vote, was it a mistake? Madam Speaker, ma'am, I want to say today, let us today not strip away the citizens of their right to vote. Why should an elected few decide for the majority? A direct presidential election is not a democratic feature of our democracy. This is a central mechanism through which citizens exercise sovereignty. Removing the people's direct vote for presidents reduces millions of Zimbabweans to spectators, while a small group of parliamentarians decides who becomes the head of state. Madam Speaker, ma'am, on this clause, this also creates serious risk of patronage, bribery, intimidation, and political bargaining. In a context like our country, where money and executive power already influence political processes, reducing the electoral college from millions of citizens to a few parliamentarians is very dangerous. Even more concerning, the proposed clause appears to allow a person who was never directly elected by the people or even rejected by the voters to become a president through this parliament. This is not democracy. This is a removal of the people from the center of government. I therefore oppose clause 3. Madam Speaker, let me move to clause 4, 9, and 10, which talks about the extension of terms from 5 years to 7 years. In 2023, the President and members of Parliament were elected for a 5-year term. No candidate sought a mandate from the people for 7 years. To extend the term after the election is to alter the people's mandate after it has already been given. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the bill is about consolidation of political power. This is what we have seen since this debate started. If one examines the political campaign surrounding this bill, particularly the advertisements that have been put out on radio and television, the focus is not on deepening democracy or strengthening our institutions or even improving the governance. The focus has been on an individual. If you listen to the jiggles, if you listen to the songs around this bill, they've been centered on an individual, and we reject this bill, Madam Speaker, ma'am. No elected body has a moral or constitutional authority to unilaterally extend its own term of office without returning to the people. This is precisely why Section 328, subsection 7 exists. It improves the incumbents. It prevents the incumbents from benefiting from the amendments that extend their term in office. It is a constitutional firewall against self-serving amendments. If leaders want a 7-year term, they must ask the people directly through a referendum and apply these changes only for future office holders, not this current parliament. Clause 8 allows the president to appoint additional senators. The proposal de-democratizes the Senate. Senators must represent the people and their provinces, not presidential preference. The danger between, Madam Speaker, ma'am, the danger becomes clearer when clause 8 is read together with clause 3. If Parliament elects the president and the president appoints the senators, then the system risks being secular. There is presidential influence shaping the body that may in turn choose the president in the future. This also affects the constitutional amendment arithmetic. Additional appointed senators, as proposed by the bill, can alter the balance of power in Parliament and make it easier for a ruling party to reach the supermajority without obtaining a genuine 2/3 mandate from the voters. This is not a technical reform. It is a constitutional fraud, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Let me move to clauses 11, 12, 13, and 17. These clauses talks about the Electoral Delimitation Commission and a reduction of the ZEC function. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the delimitation and voter registration must remain with ZEC, and ZEC must be strengthened. The problem with our electoral system is not that ZEC has too much independence. The problem is that citizens, they want more transparency, want more independence, more accountability, and more public confidence. The proposed delimitation commission would be appointed by the president. Again, this is an executive override. That creates a risk that boundary delimitation, one of the most politically sensitive electoral functions, may become a subject of executive influence. Free and fair elections require an independent institutions. These clauses move us in a different direction. The repeal in the constitutional provision requiring traditional leaders not to be members of political parties or to participate as parties in politics. This is clause 21. We strongly reject this clause. Traditional leaders serve communities made by the citizens from different political views. Their authority depends on neutrality, fairness, and trust. If traditional leaders become openly partisan, their constitutional role as community leaders and quasi-judicial authority is compromised. This clause also affects the Senate, because the chiefs, they're going to be sitting in the Senate as members of parliament. So if chiefs are no longer constitutionally required to be non-partisan, then the democratic legitimacy of the Senate is further weakened. You have additional 10 senators, you have chiefs who are now partisan. This will weaken our Senate, Madam Speaker, ma'am. The traditional leaders must remain above partisan politics. They must not subscribe to any political party, Madam Speaker, ma'am. The recurring message from my constituents that I represent in this august house, Harare West constituents, was to demand for a referendum. The people of this country made the constitution. The people must decide whether it must be fundamentally altered. As their representative today, I wish to place their views before this house and submit that the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Amendment number 3 bill, must be rejected in its entirety. The Constitution must be rejected in its entirety. The Constitution of this country belongs to the people, and no one has a right to play around with the people's constitution. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I therefore submit the views and concerns of the people of Harare West constituents. I thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Mamombe. Honorable Kariko.